Hey, what's up YouTube? Lightsaber Samurai here, and I'm back again for another pickups video. It's been a month or two since I've done the last one, so naturally I've been on the hunt. I've got a lot of cool things, including games spanning about 6 or 7 different systems, as well as adding a new system to the collection. And at the very end, I'm going to show you a cool novelty item I got. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so first up on the list, I'm going to start with some of the handheld stuff, and I've got a couple of items for the PlayStation Vita here. So starting off with the Vita, I've got Persona 4, Dancing All Night. Now Persona 4 Dancing All Night, this is the first game from the Persona series I actually collected. It's a highly touted series, a lot of hardcore fans in the series. It's primarily an RPG series, but in recent years they've branched out into different genres like fighting games. This one is more, from what I can understand, is a rhythm-based game. I haven't played this. I'll try if I can to get some gameplay footage to show you for the video. But it looks like the crew is trying to solve the mystery of a bunch of entertainers and people who are coming up missing. So that will be pretty interesting. And like I said, it's another Vita game, so pick that up. Also, very cool item for the Vita, and that is Tokyo Xanadu Limited Edition. And this one, again, another title I don't know anything about. It is an action RPG. I did kind of do a little research when I was actually in the store and found this. I got this at a good deal. As you can see, it's still sealed, and I got it basically for the same price you would get it for the normal edition. Of course, the limited edition comes with a bunch of extra items. For instance, this cool long box has a physical full soundtrack to the game. Let's see what else here. A Blade card game deck, a 60-page art book, and a 5-inch deluxe plush. So happy to pick that up. So that's going to do it for the Vita stuff. I did pick up a couple of Game Boy games at a garage sale. And first up for the Game Boy Advance, that was Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. Now, this is the third in the trilogy that came out on the Game Boy Advance. Of course, there was Circle of the Moon first, and then Harmony of Dissonance, followed by this game. This game is unique in the series in that it takes place in the near future, as opposed to kind of the Victorian era, as most Castlevania games in the series take place. This is another Metroidvania style game, and most people who have played all three say this is the best of the series. My personal favorite is Circle of the Moon, just because that's the one I owned and played back in the day. But I'm looking forward to going through that. Also, at the same garage sale, and I picked this up for a couple of bucks on the Game Boy Color, and that is Metal Gear Solid. Now, Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy Color is basically a side story that takes place in the years between Metal Gear Solid and Sons of Liberty. Of course, he reprised the role of Solid Snake. He's entering a fortress called Galuade to stop terrorists from developing the latest iteration of the Metal Gear nuclear walking tank. And the thing about this that really got me is just how impressive the game is. Hideo Kojima and his team did a very admirable job of bringing the Metal Gear Solid gameplay to the Game Boy Color. And most of the moves are there. The graphics are some of the best you'll see on the system. I'll put them right up there with like Shantae, and the animation is really smooth. Like I said, you can press against walls, melee attacks. You know, the boss battles are some of the best. I mean, some of the boss battles here are some of the coolest in the series, in my opinion. The Black Chamber is the name of the mercenary group you take on and comprised of the boss battle. So, like I said, this is not a $5 game, and I think I got this for about $5, so I was happy to pick that up. Moving right along, we'll get into some Xbox stuff. I've kind of been on a fighting game kick, and I'll show you this first, and this is a cool compilation here. This is the King of Fighters 2002 and 2003. Now, both games boast huge rosters. I think 2002 comes with like 35 characters, the other one 40 characters. And the King of Fighters series has become one of my favorite fighting games. Now, as far as 2D fighters go, I was all about Street Fighter back in the day and couldn't really get access to King of Fighters, as most of the King of Fighters stuff came out on the Neo Geo systems that most of us did not have. It was only in later years when you started to see King of Fighters pop up on like the Saturn and the original PlayStation, PS2 and the Xbox, things like that, whereas the large majority of players got access to some of these games. And I mean, in some respects, I even like the King of Fighters series better than the Street Fighter series, and so very happy to have those games. Also, for the Xbox and another exclusive, this is Samurai Showdown 5. Now, this is the 5th title, obviously, in the long-running Samurai Showdown series. Another cool fighting game by SNK Playmore. I don't know if you can see that, but I bought that for 99 cents at my local retro game store. So, I mean, this is a really cool title. Again, has really nice animation. Really getting into the Samurai Showdown series. It's their 3D, or excuse me, it's a 2D fighting game. So Samurai Showdown, excellent title. Let's move on to some of the pickups I got from my cousin here. Okay, so I have a cousin named Junior. He's a collector, much like myself. Though he's a bit younger than I am, but no less passionate. His system, or his collection, in a lot of respects rivals mine and exceeds it as far as system goes, though he was recently downsizing his system as he just had a baby recently, so congratulations on that. But he hooked me up with a couple of items for my collection, and I'll highlight a couple of them here. First off, he hooked me up with the mighty Sega Dreamcast, and so finally I'm a proud owner of the Sega Dreamcast. I've always been curious about this system. This is actually the system that kicked off the 6th generation of video games, so it basically competed with the PS2, the GameCube, the original Xbox, and 9999 is a day which will live in infamy. If you were around in Cognis back then, and I mean, that was a huge day for video games. Had one of the biggest US launches of any game system, and so I was happy to get the Dreamcast, and now I can start collecting Dreamcast games. He got my collection started off with Evil Dead on the Dreamcast, and this is Hail to the King. I don't know much about the Evil Dead games. I know there was a bunch of them that came out on the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 as well. They appear to be third-person action-adventure games, and they should include a lot of the humor from the classic movie series. I believe Bruce Campbell also lent his voice and was also involved in development of some of these games, so that should be pretty cool. Also, he did get me a cool PS2 game, and one that I've been looking for a long time, and that, of course, is God Hand on the PlayStation 2. Now, God Hand was released in the early 2000s, and this is by Clover Studios. Clover Studios, of course, became Platinum Games, and if you saw my episode dedicated completely to Platinum Games, then you'll know I'm a huge fan of those guys. Even before they became Platinum Games under Clover, they were putting out some kick-ass games, this being one of them. They also created the Beautiful Joe series under their watch, as well as Okami. So they had a strong pedigree for great games even before they became Platinum Games. So I was happy to get this one back in my collection. I owned it years ago, got rid of it, and it's become a little bit rare and kind of hard to find. So Junior, thanks a lot for blessing me with that game. Moving along, I think I'll tap into some of the stuff that I got from my 619's video game group. Actually, before I do that, the garage sale where I got the Game Boy Advance and the colored game, one more title I got from that garage sale, and this is for the Nintendo Wii. It also is like $5, and that is Metroid Prime Trilogy. So I just recently started collecting for the Wii, as I was given a Wii about 6 months ago. And the Wii itself, it's actually a pretty interesting system. Unfortunately, about 80% of the games on the console are shovelware, but you know, it has its bright spots and its hidden gems. So I've pretty much got enough games now where I can do a video on the Wii, so I'd like to do that in the future, in the near future. But Metroid Prime Trilogy, of course, is Metroid Prime Echoes and Metroid Prime Corruption, which is the third one. And so, like I said, it's got the first three games, well, all the three in the series. The first two that came out on GameCube, and then Corruption that came out on the Wii. All the I think they updated the graphics a little bit, and they redid the controls, so all three games you can use with the Wiimote. And so that's an excellent reputation of the Metroid series in 3D, and one of the best 3D shooters that you can get on the Wii. So was happy to add that to my collection. So sticking with Nintendo, so the 619 Games group that I'm with, shout out to my boy Josh for hooking me up with F-Zero GX. F-Zero GX, one of the few games that I'm looking for left on the GameCube. This is an excellent racing game, very similar to the Wipeout series on the PlayStation and PlayStation 2. Of course, this one came out first, making its debut on the SNES. And this, I mean, this is a technically impressive game. It looks excellent on the GameCube still. It displays in widescreen and 480p. The graphics are just out of control. It runs at a smooth 60 frames per second, and that's while running, you know, super fast tracks with something like 30 other racers on the course at the same time. No hints of slowdown. So Josh, thank you very much for getting me and got me a great deal on that. So thank you for the hookup on that. I'm not showing it on this video, but he also hooked me up with another PlayStation 3 that's the 60 gig backwards compatible. So I was looking for another one of those because mine was acting up, and I ended up getting that one fixed. So now I have two of them, one upstairs, and of course I can put one down here in the game room. So thanks again, Josh. From the same group, I got to give a shout out to Peter for hooking me up with the Guy game on the PlayStation 2. Now the Guy game, it came out during the era of Girls Gone Wild when those DVDs were popular. This isn't the greatest game ever, but it's more or less a trivia game. Oh, hold on, I'm looking here. Oh, no, you don't. So, she's been running around this whole video. I was waiting for an opportunity to snatch her up. So, this is one of my favorite pickups that I picked up recently. This is Penelope. And Penelope comes to me from a friend of mine who ended up having the cat and had to get rid of her. She dropped her to mine, you know, asked me if I was interested in the cat. I said, maybe, you know, she kind of brought her by my house. And as soon as I seen Penelope, I mean, I'm more of a dog person, but as soon as I saw Penelope, I said, oh, you know, I gotta, you know, I was happy to give her a good home. So she's running around. She loves it down here in the game room, just like me. She's a gamer just like me. Is that right, Penelope? So she just wants to get back to running around. So knock yourself out. Back to the Guy game. This game had a bit of controversy. Well, actually, not more than a bit. As one of the girls in this video, she faked her age, said she was 21 when she was really like 16 or 17, and she's on the video game showing her boobies. And once the news of that got out, a federal judge said pull the copies on all the store shelves, immediately cease production of this game. So not as many copies as there should have been in this game to come out. This game is starting to be a little bit rare, and it is starting to go up in price. So Peter, thank you for getting me very clean copy of this game. I'll have to do a Let's Play with some of my friends on this, just because I think it'll be funny. So, got the Guy game. Let's see, and going on to a lot. So recently I did score a pretty cool PlayStation game lot, and it was a find on the internet, on Facebook, I believe. It came with a bunch of cool puzzle titles in it, which I didn't really have in my collection. Starting off first with Pac-Man World. So all these games is kind of the 32-bit take on their respective series. This Pac-Man plays more of kind of like a 3D platformer. The basic premise, from what I believe, is still there as far as chomping the pellets and avoiding the quartet of ghosts that set out to chase you, but they added a bit of puzzle solving and things like that to advance the map. So I was happy to get that. Not to be outdone, Ms. Pac-Man's Maze Madness came out as well. This is the take on her game, and this one has more of a multiplayer element to it. Supports up to 4 players, and so this will be really cool to pull out the multi-tap. I'd like to do a Let's Play of this sometime with the crew. I also got Q*bert, and Q*bert is a puzzle game that came out on the original NES, I think is where I played it back in the day. So I was happy to score that. I also got Frogger as well, and so they added a bunch of new areas. And I mean, I love playing this game. Like even back in the day, I mean, it came out on you know, a lot of the older systems, like the Intellivision and the ColecoVision and things like that. And so I mean, it was fun to play back on those, fun to play back on the NES. So I'm excited to see how it's gonna play with 3D polygons. So there's that. And the last of the puzzle games I got was the next Tetris. And interestingly enough, as I look around my collection, I do not own a Tetris game at all. Don't know why that is. I swear I had it on Game Boy, and I probably did at one point. But like I said, it's nice to add Tetris back in my collection. I mean, this is a timeless game. One of the most iconic games of all time, and it got 32-bit treatment, and also has multiplayer in that. But the main reason why I went for this lot, and so I got these games all for $25, and not just those, but he also had the original Crash Bandicoot. He had Crash Bandicoot 2 and Crash Bandicoot Warp. So I got the whole trilogy of Crash Bandicoot games, and for some reason I did not have those in my collection already. With the Warp trilogy coming out on PS4, of course I still don't own a PS4, so I was looking to go back and get these. I was looking for them about a year ago, and they were all hanging around the $40, $50 a piece. You can get them for much cheaper now, especially for the green labels. But I got those puzzle games and that trilogy for $25, so that was too good a deal to pass up. And getting down to the wire here, I think I'll finish it out with some fighting games that I got for the original PlayStation. More PlayStation games, of course. That's probably my favorite system of all time. And first up, we've got Street Fighter EX plus Alpha. Now, Street Fighter EX plus Alpha is an earlier title. It came out in '97, I think. And this is their 3D take on the classic Street Fighter games. So it's basically fighters on a 2D plane, but they're using all 3D polygons. The graphics look good for its time. It still runs pretty smooth. I like the EX series because it has a lot of fighters that you don't really see in a lot of the other series of Street Fighter games. Guys like Volcano Rosso and Skullomania and stuff like that. So it was really cool to snag that. Also, I got this game here, and this is called Star Gladiator. Now, if you played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on any of the systems it came out on back in the day, you may remember Hayato in that game, and he was kind of the samurai dude that had basically a lightsaber for a weapon. And I kept asking myself, like, what the heck game is this guy from? And I was pretty big into Capcom fighting games in the late 90s. And I was all about Fighter's Edge and all of that, but I did not know what game he came from. And so I was just wandering around and saw him on the cover. I said, hey, that's the guy from Marvel vs. Capcom. So I got this for, I don't know what it goes for, but they were selling it for like $10. So I thought that was a pretty good deal for it. This is a 3D weapons game. Not unlike Soul Blade and the Soul Calibur games that came out back in the day. So it moves pretty fast. The only knock on it, I would say, is it has a pretty small roster of characters. Only has about 10 characters, which most fighting games of the era did, have smaller rosters. But they're all pretty diverse enough that you can play and not get bored. So I was happy to get that. And the final fighting game and the last game that I got on this lot, and this is again shout out to the King of Sparta himself, Carlos, on the 619 Games group on Facebook. And thank you for hooking me up with Rival Schools on the PlayStation. Now, I've been looking for this game for years and years and years. This is, it's creeping up in the $60, $70 range. I didn't pay anywhere near that thanks to Carlos. And I finally got this back in my collection. This is a fighting game from Capcom again. Interesting, like Star Gladiator, the Rival Schools series, they made this one game as this one-off. They kind of left it in the dust. I take that back. I think actually there is a sequel on the Dreamcast. This is originally an arcade game that was converted to the PlayStation first, and so it comes with a 2-disc. The arcade disc, which is basically the arcade game and all the modes that came out in the arcade, and then they have the Evolution disc, which is kind of like a story mode. And I think they're trying to figure out what happened. There's students and teachers disappearing, and the rival schools are blaming each other for it. One cool thing to note is Sakura from the Street Fighter games. She's playable in this game. You know, Sakura is a schoolgirl in the Street Fighter series, and her school is represented in this game. So happy to get that. And so the last item on my list is a novelty item. Yeah, she's darting all over the place. So this item came out about a year ago. It's hugely popular. It came as fast as it went, and now it's tripled in price. But happened to stumble upon it in a pawn shop, and paid basically what the cost of, but basically the cost it was new. And that, of course, is the NES Mini. And it's cool that I grabbed this. I'd like to do a video on this very soon, as I heard a rumor that they were re-releasing the NES Mini in 2018, so that'll be pretty cool. Most of y'all know the story by now. It's a small version of the NES packed with 30 of the top games on it. And I think that's really cool, because some of those games, are kind of, harder to find, kind of more expensive, and so it'll be cool to play some of those games on that. And so that was just rushing through it real quick. That was basically all the pickups that I've got, over the last couple of months. But just if you have any questions, comments, concerns, threats, just leave them down in the comments below, and we can discuss them there. As always, I'm Lightsaber Samurai. Thank you for hitting that like button. If you like what you saw, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next time.